Hey, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's the coffee break show. And you're right. Today, we're going to rock your world. I have Teri Brown with me, and we're going to have the most fun conversation. I can't even wait to start. You guys know we have to hear the music. We'll see you in a minute. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. I'm Vicki Helm, and this is the Coffee Break Show. We bring so many interesting experts on, but today is one that I have been really looking forward to. Last year we told you, or probably a little over a year ago, we told you that Robin and I were going to be riding our bikes across America. Well, today's guest is an author. She is a philanthropist. She has actually rode her bicycle tandem with her husband across the United States, over 3,000 miles. And of course, I want to pick her brains. Teri, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm so happy you're here today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I can't wait to tell you everything I learned and didn't learn about our trip across the U.S.
I think it's so interesting because bike packing is reaching a new height of people being so excited. There's a lot of people out there bike packing, and there's this misnomer that bike packing is only for younger people, or that if you're in your 20s or maybe your 30s. And I'm like, yeah, that's a big lie. But what I want to know is, one, there's a couple of things that happened on this bike run that I want to talk about. I want to unpack the whole thing. But I want to know why you thought about it. What was the impetus? How did it even start? How did that happen for you?
Okay, so this is really crazy. I have been married for 3.5 years. When I
Congratulations.
met, thanks, when I met my husband 4.5 years ago, he is a cycling enthusiast, and I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I had been really, I wanted an adventure. I wanted to do something like big that would prove that I was something. I had lived in an emotionally abusive relationship for 14 years, and I no longer believed in myself. And although I was out of the relationship and I was definitely on my way toward healing, I don't know, I kind of felt like in a lot of ways my life was over and I was just going to have to like pedal along and watch my grandbabies grow. And I just didn't see any big thing for me.
Yeah.
But I saw somebody who had gone on the Appalachian Trail,
Oh, yeah.
and he was writing this blog, and I was reading it like a starved woman, and I kept thinking, I want to do something like that. I want to do something that proves that I'm still alive, and
Yeah.
that my children would look at me and say, there's no way in the world you can do that. Well, then I met Bruce. That's my husband, and he wanted to know if I wanted to ride the tandem bicycle with him, and of course, I thought that sounded romantic. And so, we went on a tandem bicycle ride, and as we got to know each other better, he was telling me that ever since 1976, he's wanted to ride across the United States. There was a bunch of college kids that did it during the 1976 bicentennial, and
Yeah.
he was in the military, and it's not like he could just take 3 months off, and he's always wanted to do it. And it connected in my mind, and I thought, well, that's an adventure. And so I said, is this something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or is this something you really plan to do? And he said, no, I really want to do it. And I said, count me in. And so
Awesome.
even before we were engaged or married, I knew that we were going to ride across the United States, and we chose to do it on a tandem bicycle. So yeah, it was great. It was a wonderful journey, but we came at it from such different sides. He's an enthusiast. He's been riding my hundreds of miles and
Yep.
bicycle races and all
Yep.
of this stuff, right? And then there
Yep.
was me, and I hadn't been
Yep.
on a bicycle in 40 years, and
Yep.
off we went.
This is so incredible that you're saying this because I swear it's like there's an alternate reality where I am married to the same person. I am married to an elite athlete, and I mean 14er mountain climbers, long distance bike rides over 3 mountain passes that are like 13, 14,000 feet up in the air. I mean, just constant athleticism. And I am, kind of the pudgy, I have my athletic abilities, but one of them isn't like I'm going to do the MS 150 and do it. The MS 150 is one of the hardest bike rides in the United States. It's over 3 mountain passes, and doing them, it's very elite athlete, and
Yes.
they're just like, they're not like, "Hi, it's a 3% grade." It's Colorado, so it's
Right.
mountain passes. So, I remember thinking to myself, when I first heard it, I was like, "People do that? People
On
ride their bike
purpose?
across the United States?" And it seems daunting to me. It was when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, hell no. I'm not getting on the freeway with all the cars going this way and shooting by, and you're like pedaling and the wind is blowing in your face and dust is flying." I'm like, that doesn't seem fun at all. And there is this misnomer, because what my spouse did was buy me the bike packing map of the United States where all the routes are. And it suddenly opened my eyes to the possibility of what could be. And I'm wondering, you hadn't been on a bike for 40 years. You're like, okay, count me in. Let's go do this. So I know, because I am training right now, I know how much work it takes to get that bike from that place to that place. I'm curious. I don't know what route you took, and I'm not sure my audience knows what route they took. But what did you do? Did you train, or did you just say, okay, let's go for it? I'll figure it out along the way. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so sore right now. I need a day off. What did you do?
So we did train. My husband, he spent 25 years in the military, and he believes in something he calls the 7P principle, which is prior poor planning,
The piss
something,
poor
piss poor
results.
performance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the piss
something.
poor
Yeah,
performance. Yeah,
yeah.
okay, yes.
So
The 7 Ps is
the
what it's
seven
called.
P's. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we
Oh my
definitely,
God,
we,
Robin, this guy is your soulmate here.
yeah. So I have a friend, by the way, who says that there's only one man and we all married him. So I just thought that I'd pass that little piece of information along to you. Um, so we did a lot of training, but we live in North Carolina on the coast.
I
Okay.
am so envious of you
Okay.
already.
And
That's
it is,
biking country.
but it's flat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did some, what we thought were hills, or what I thought was hills, and it didn't come close to preparing us for the first day in Oregon. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we started in Astoria, Oregon. We
Yeah.
followed the Lewis and Clark until
Yes,
we
yes,
got
yes.
into Montana, and then we went Highway 2 the whole way across from there. But no, it didn't prepare me at all. In fact, on day 1, I thought, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I think I've bitten off more than I can chew."
Yeah.
But what I learned was, when you're riding across the United States, you're not riding 3,102 miles. You're riding that day.
That's right.
And when that day is over, you put that day away and now you're on the next day. When we finally finished, so we pull in at we went to Washington D.C. to the Iwo Jima Memorial because my husband was a Marine, so that's where we come in. And I couldn't, in my mind, I knew I had done it, but I couldn't put all of those days together to make me come across the United States, because I didn't ride across the United States. I rode on Tuesday 40 miles. I rode on Wednesday 62 miles. I rode on Thursday 27 miles. And then all of a sudden it all added up until there we were. And so even now today, so it's been 2 years, and in my mind I still think, how did we do that? And what it is it's one pedal stroke at a time. You focus on the task at hand, and when that day is over, I wrote about it. Being a writer, I kept a blog of every day, and so I would write about it, and then
We
I
do
would put it
too.
away.
If it's not on Strava and it's not on your sheet, then I mean, we have kept records of how far we ride and what
Mhm.
we do on that sheet over and over and over again. I love what you said. I love what you said, Teri. It's not about getting across the United States. It's this day I rode 40 miles.
Yeah.
This day I rode 62 miles. Let me ask you something.
Mhm.
How long did you train before you went? And
Um,
were you able to do 62 miles when you first started?
so okay, 2 questions. We trained for a little over a year.
Good.
So I met Bruce in 2018. We didn't really start training until about the point that we got married, and we were married 15 months when we went on the trip. So,
Mm,
we about a year, a little more than a year. No, I remember the first day that I did 20 miles and thought what an amazing experience that was, and I couldn't believe I had ever gone that far.
yeah.
So, no, I mean, absolutely not. And then there were days on the trip where we went more than I had ever been before. We had one day where we went 92 miles, and
Yeah.
the winds were perfect, the roads were perfect, everything was perfect.
That's
And
a good
and we
day.
flew and we went and it was great. And I had never been more than 69 miles before that, and we had gone 92. So you just, yeah, you just kind of go with it. And then the next day we were more tired than we thought we were from the 92-mile day, and we only went 18, because
What
that's what you
happens?
do, right?
That's the thing I think is really great because I know that Robin has done over 100 miles in a day easily over and over and over. She could do them one day, then go the next day, then go the next day. But I'm like you. The when I've done 27 miles, I'm like, yes, we're training at 8,500 feet up, and there's a lot of mountain biking, and we're just training on going up, 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 up at a consistent pace.
Yeah.
Because what you have a tendency to do is to try to go fast and not endurance riding. Endurance riding is very different. It's not about going fast, it's about consistency. And I know that there must have been times because I know that I'm much slower than my partner can go. And I'm like, okay, there has to be some sort of compromise between the two of you about what pace you're going to go.
Makes it
And
easier on a tandem.
yes, it
You
does,
can
doesn't
you
it?
can only go as fast as the slowest person, so
That's right. You do what you do.
right.
I gotta admit, I'm not gonna go across on the tandem. I'm definitely gonna go across on the bicycle itself, because I want my own experience of holding the bike and everything else.
Right.
And tell me, when you were riding across, what is the part of you? Because in the in the journey, there was a part of you that healed.
Yeah.
What was that part? What helped it heal? And I have a tendency to ask several questions all at once. So I'm gonna try to just make it those two right now. What healed? How did it heal? What did it open up for you after you healed? What was the transformation process?
Okay, so, like you, my partner is the elite athlete, marathons, triathlons,
Mhm.
bicycle racing, scuba diving, hang gliding, you name it. And then I'm a desk jockey. Okay. So like I like to swim.
I do too. Love it.
I enjoy walking on the beach.
Mhm.
I'm not a complete couch potato, but athlete and Teri were never two words that were put together. I mean, that's not who I have ever been. Um, and so for me, going across the United States was very huge, like huge, huge. For my
Yes.
husband, it was a big deal. For me, it was like
Yes.
just completely out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I had spent 14 years in an emotionally abusive relationship, and it was an ugly relationship. And when you're living in something like that for 14 years, you kind of forget who you are.
Yes.
And you don't believe in yourself anymore, and you no longer you doubt everything. Like, can I even go to the grocery store alone? I mean, I know that sounds crazy because I'm an educated woman with a college degree, but you get to the point where you're not even sure. You're standing in the grocery store, you don't even know if picking this item over this item is even allowable. And
Yeah.
so you become really, I don't even know the word for it, but just like unable, like you just feel very,
Discombobulated?
very just stopped up, like you just don't have a way forward. At the point that we went on the ride, of course, I was married again, and he's a good man, and I wasn't feeling quite that way, but I was still very unsure of myself.
Yeah.
Didn't really believe that I had the capability to do big, hard things. And so on this trip, every day was hard. There were just some great days, but in general, there was something hard about every day. And at the end of every day, I could look back and say, look at what you just accomplished.
Yeah.
You went 42 miles, or you went 30 miles over a mountain range, or you went 27 miles into headwinds all day long,
Yeah.
or you dealt with 3 flat tires and 95-degree temperature, or whatever it was. And slowly, I began to really believe that I could do things, that I was strong and capable, and a lot of I call it swamp gas. So from my old marriage, things would like kind of bubble up out of nowhere. And I was kind of finding a way to put that swamp gas somewhere else. It didn't belong in my life anymore. Like I am a strong, capable woman who can do anything. And by the end of the ride, I realized the answer to can you do XYZ? The answer is yes. Do I want to? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because if I don't want to, then I don't have to. So it was kind of two things. I learned I can do anything, and I'm allowed to say no to things I don't want to do. And
Beautiful.
that's what healed me. I think it was just this finally coming together of, kind of remembering back to when you were a kid and you were like superwoman, you could do anything you wanted, and nobody could stop you, and you were invincible. I lost that along the way, and I have it again.
Fantastic.
So,
That's the best reason to go. It's
yeah.
so interesting you're saying this because one of the things that is there for me is I've done a lot of challenges. I'm super successful and I'm super grateful and I've had super great opportunities. But physical challenges is not something like I go hiking or whatever, but a physical challenge is not something that's on my bucket
Yeah.
list of having done. And I love to hike and I love to see things and I'm like, I would rather go slowly across and see it all and ingest it in that way. And the experience that you said, I know what it's like biking in a headwind, not fun at all.
Well, no,
But
and we
for
had
27 miles.
yeah, well,
Wow.
no, so it was worse than that. We went across Montana, and for some reason, 2 of the weeks that we were crossing Montana, we had headwinds the entire time.
Wow.
And
That
they
is
were blowing the wrong way. Normally it blows from west to east, and they were blowing from east to west, and it was almost 2 full weeks of headwinds, to the point that we almost decided to quit. It was just not fun anymore. We had
yeah.
gotten to the point that it was like, what are we doing this for? Like, what is the reason behind this? Then we had a really, really good day and a really good rest.
Sold you the dream.
And then it was like, okay, we can do this again. So
I'm going to
something,
remember this right
yeah.
here. Robin, you remind me of Teri just saying that when it happens.
So
Beautiful.
I got a great piece of advice on that day. So I would reach out to the people who were following me on my blog,
Mhm.
and I had several friends. This was during the COVID 2020 summer. So
Yeah.
there were people following us like starved people because they're stuck in their homes, and my husband and I are out riding across the United States.
Yeah.
And when I said to them, I think we might be done. This is just, this isn't fun anymore. I had a friend reach out to me, and she said, if you're done, then, you need to do what's best for you. However, don't quit on a bad day. She said,
Oh,
you will always look back and wonder,
that's for
could I
everyone.
have done it? If you continue a few more days, you've had a few good days, but you're still saying to yourself, this is not it, and you quit, then you know that you quit for the right reasons. If you quit on a bad day, you always wonder, you'll always kick yourself and always wonder. So that was one thing.
Beautiful.
And then another thing I wanted to say, because you said earlier about liking to go slowly. My husband said all the time that we got to see the United States at 10 miles an hour.
That's right. That's
And
the whole point.
you get to smell it. you
Yeah.
get to see it. You get to feel the way the temperature changes when you're in the mountains and you cross across a stream that's going under the road, and the temperature changes and you feel the temperature change on your arms. It's a different experience than them riding across the on in a car.
Or
And
on
you
a
can do,
train.
yeah, and you can do different things when you're on a car. You can see more things. We had an idea that we would do a lot more sightseeing, but when you got done at the end of the day, going 5 extra miles to go see some pretty thing that someone said was in the town, unless someone was willing to give you a ride in the car, you were kind of done for the day.
Yeah.
So we learned that there are a lot of things that we saw parts of that we would love to go back now by car and see more of those things, because we didn't really get to experience some of the things because they were off the beaten path, and we didn't have another 15 miles in us to go take care, to go look at that. So
This is so cool, because we're talking about my dream. And I know there's a lot of people out there, and you may have questions. If you have questions, just pop on over to the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel and ask them. But the popularity of bike packing is exploding now. And it exploded in 2020 because there were a lot of people that said bike sales went through the roof.
they did.
Everybody got a bike, and everybody, now we started before that going, okay, we want to ride our bike across the Americas before the pandemic hit. In
Right.
fact, the pandemic slowed us down. We were probably thinking, okay, we'll be on the road by this time, but that pandemic happened, and we had family and things and commitments, and we stayed. And great question. Thank you. I just wanted to do this. This is a great question. How did you determine what gear to take? Did you sleep in a tent or get B&Bs? What did you do along the way on your route?
All right. So we had intended to use, there's a organization called Warm Showers. If you
Mhm.
don't know about it, you need to look it up. We had intended to use it, but it was the summer of COVID. So
Yep. So you
warm
couldn't.
showers weren't happening. People were not opening up their homes to
Yeah.
allow some strange bicyclist to come in and sleep in their home.
Yeah.
We did tent. We had a trailer, and so we pulled all of our equipment, and we also stayed some in hotels, or mostly motels, and really motels, but some motels across when you couldn't get a good place to camp. So it kind of depended on what was available and what our needs were at the time. If we knew that we were going to take a rest day, that we just had to have a break, we would often stay in a motel because you had better temperature control and good showers, and you had a space where you could maybe go do some laundry or do some other things. And so it kind of depended on what we were doing. I would say that we probably were about half and half between motels and being in a campground. So, and then as far as
Love
what
it.
gear to take, I've got some good stories about that. My husband was better prepared than I was. I thought that I had done a great job, and I had my stuff down to these 2 sacks on either side, right? And then I had packed up kitchen material because I was going to cook. We were going to have some great food in the campground. And on the 5th day out, I woke up and my husband was already awake, and he looked at me and he said, "So, I've made an error in judgment." And I thought, "Oh my God, if he's made an error in judgment, we're dead." Because, I'm hardly making it as it is. And he said, "We have too much stuff. I'm going to send a few things home. Is there anything you can send home?" Well, by God, fear gets rid of a lot of things. Okay. So we sent about 20 pounds home. And
20 pounds. Oh my gosh. That's what did you have left?
well, I took too much to begin with, is the problem. I had 17 different spices.
Yeah. Just say no.
Just say no. And I had too many changes of clothes. I found I needed 2. I needed the shorts I was wearing and the shorts that were drying. And
That's
I needed the shirt I was wearing and the shirt that was drying.
it.
And I needed one something for a pajama, because You
Yeah.
can't go buff in a tent in the middle of a campground, because you have to pee in the night. So you have to have something there. You have to have something for cool weather, because we were riding right up along the border and there were too many times where the temperature differences.
Yeah.
And you don't need as much. I had cute things. I had, a little skirt that I could put over in case I was trying to not show my ugly padded shorts, and
Yeah.
I got rid of it all. And we ended up sending back more 5 days after that, because he said, I have a few more things I can send back. And I said, me too. The first time was fear and the second time was experience. I figured at
Brilliant.
10 days, if I hadn't used it at this point, then I can do without. And it was so easy to understand. So when you're doing your packing, I really recommend that you look long and hard at, do you really, really need it?
Yeah.
And I'll
That
gladly
weight of
send you
that.
my list of things that we took that might maybe help
I
like
would love that.
what you need and what you
Thank
don't.
you.
Definitely look at hiking grade things, for those people who are like ultralight backpackers.
That's
But
right.
look at it in terms of, sometimes the price gets so outrageous that it isn't worth the 3 ounces. But so you have to kind of go back and forth as to, it's actually easier to lose 3 ounces of weight than it is to spend that money on, that ultralight, whatever it is. So you kind of go back and forth. But we learned a lot. We learned a lot. And we took another small trip this past fall, and went up the coast of Maine, and we were lighter yet, because we learned, oh, we don't need this and we don't need that. And the sleeping things that we needed, it was too heavy, but we were already committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we drug it all the way across the United States. And now it's like, no, we know a better way. And so, yeah, we just learned a lot of things along the
That's
way.
so fantastic that you're sitting there. We watch a lot of experienced people. There are a lot of questions coming in. Let's see. How often did you take a rest day? One time a week or more? How often did you take a rest day?
Okay, so the first 10 days we did not take one, because we were Superman and woman, and we had an ego and pride that was so ginormous that nothing would have got us off the bike. Then we learned that we needed a rest day about every 5 days.
About every 5 days, they needed a rest day. I gotta tell you, that rest day thing to me is that's why I want to take, the 3 months they say required. I wanna take 5, because if you get to a beautiful area and you just wanna hang out in the beautiful area, I mean, you rode there. I don't wanna be so, regimented, like, every day we have to ride this many miles so we hit our target on a set. I wanna
So
be
let
able
me
to
tell you this
enjoy the
this
experience.
this
And if it's
story
too windy, I wanna stop.
exactly. This story will make you laugh. Um, we we thought that we would ride 60 miles a day. That was what we had intended.
That
Okay,
makes me
so
laugh right now.
we averaged 42, just to give you an idea of how wrong we were. And I had created a schedule. I knew exactly how far we were going to ride, what cities we were stopping in, from the point that we left until going home. And I had it all in this database. And day one, of course, we did not make the 60 miles. And so I adjusted. And day two, we didn't make the 60 miles. So I adjusted again. And day three, we didn't make the 60 miles, and I threw it away
Ah, nice.
because I was wrong. You cannot predict, because you could have bad headwinds. The roads could be bad. The weather could be bad. You might wake up not feeling your best that day, have a little bit of a headache or muscle soreness, and think, this is not the best day to ride. So we're going to ride, but we're not going to make it as far. You might have to ride farther than you feel like you could ride, because there's no place to stop.
Yeah.
And so we would always, in the morning, or usually at night right before bed, I would look at the next possible places to stop, and there would be something early, something kind of middle of the road, and something much further along. And at each one, as we're coming into it, we would evaluate, how are we feeling? Look and say, okay, so the next place to stop is 16 miles from now. Do we have 16 miles, or are we done for the day? And when you got to that place, you could say again, okay, now there's another place that's 10 miles from now. Do we have that, or are we done? So
Beautiful. I love the checking in at the milestone places. I want to talk about food because once you got rid of all your spices and everything else, how do you keep the food that you're going to eat there, and how did you get from one side to the other carrying as little food as you could carry so that you weren't weighed down on the bike? Tell us about how you supplied yourself, so to speak, from one side of the country to the other.
Well, luckily we live in the United States where grocery stores and mini marts and things are relatively easy to find. So, but we had 4 days worth of dried meals, the kind that you add the boiling water to and you
Mhm.
wait and they turn into something. That was for the just in cases. In case we didn't make it somewhere and had to do a bandit camp on the side of the road or something that we weren't starving to death. And so we always made sure that we had full water and those meals with us. Then we would usually stop at a grocery store or a Minute Mart or a Dollar General or something every couple of days. We ate pretty much every day. We had oatmeal for breakfast. And so you make the oatmeal, and we would have dried fruit, and that
Mhm.
dried fruit would then be put into the oatmeal. That dried fruit was also put into, I would make little baggies every morning that had nuts and fruit and M&Ms or some kind of little chocolate
Trail
something.
mix kind
And
of
that
thing.
was our trail mix that we would eat on all day. We would often, for lunch, we would often find a restaurant along the way.
Cool.
Or if you couldn't find a restaurant, then you stopped at a mini mart and you ate one of their sandwiches, or there was always there's
Something.
always something. And then for dinner, the number of times that we would find a grocery store that had one of the roasted chickens.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you'd get the roasted chicken, you would find a side, and you would just kind of sit and almost eat right out of the container and
Yeah.
just eat until you weren't, and then throw it out because you didn't have any way of keeping it. So you just ate until you weren't. And you could usually get those for like $5. Well, so for $5 you had all the protein you could eat.
Mhm.
And we sometimes would do pizza. Like if there was one time we went by a Costco and it was about 2 miles from where we were stopping. So we
Oh,
went
they have
in and got
great
a
pizza.
Costco, put it in our trailer and drove and just sat and ate pizza. Um, I had a couple of meals that I made, like you could get kielbasa sausage and some vegetables, and you
Uh-huh.
just grill it all up together on a
Love it.
pan, and
Yep.
then split it in half and eat. Um, but
But
everything was simple.
but the important thing to know is you didn't have to gear up with taking tons of food with you
Nope.
to make sure that you had food. And I know there's a lot of, there's the cycling associations right
Yes.
now. Cycling is getting so big that there are businesses being developed along these there if you look at a bike map and you look at all the trails and everything else, all these businesses are coming up because these cyclists will stop in and buy everywhere along the way. It's kind of that
Exactly.
thing. So uh the the importance of taking the day off and feeling well the next day, did over a period of time those become like, not just you took them off every 5 days, or was there a point where you could just naturally go further because your body was acclimating and getting stronger as you went? And at the end of the ride, this is kind of an interesting question. The reason I want to do the ride is because I know that the person I am now and the person I'm going to be at the end of the ride is vastly different.
Mhm.
And that's what I want. I want the vastly different person. And for me, if you could say a little bit about what was vastly different for you, not just out in your attitude, but in your demeanor that has never left you since you've been that. And I know it's the ability to say no, and I know that it's the ability to have a little more confidence. But could you say a couple of days where there was a turning point for you? I know you did with your friend, don't give up on a bad day.
Right.
I love the advice you're giving, by the way, Terry, because it applies to life in general. It applies to writing a book, doing a business, doing everything you're doing. Don't quit on a bad day. Quit on a good day. If you're not
Right.
having fun on the good day, then do it. I love what you're saying. But I also know that who you were here and who you were here are vastly different. And the question is, what's the vast difference? And would you do another bike trek if that's in your future? Would you do another bike packing trek after you've done this one?
So I will do small ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we went and did the coast of Maine. We spent 2 weeks actually bike packing, and then another 2 weeks where we did car camping and did some
Cool.
bike rides from there. That is more the length. I have children, grandchildren. I like to play bridge. I like to walk on the beach. I like to write. I like to read. I didn't get to do anything but cycle for those 3 months. And I would never give that up. That was the best thing ever, but I don't need to do that again. I've done it. I know I can. Now I would like to focus on smaller trips, things that hey, my husband wants to come up the coast of Florida and do the whole Gulf Coast because it's so beautiful.
So
I
do
think
we.
something, yeah. So I think something like that, something that has a smaller time frame to it, so that I can then go back to doing the other things that I also enjoy. In terms of how I've changed, I think, like you said, I know that I can say no, and I know I have confidence. I also now I had a little bit of fear of like approaching someone, admitting I needed help, and then approaching someone and letting them know what I needed. But on this trip, it was my husband and I. We didn't have a backup car following us along the way. So if we had a problem, and we had problems, if we had a problem, we had to rely on people around us. And so I really learned that people in general, this is a general, are good, and people in general are willing to help you. There are those bad eggs. I don't want to hear all kinds of people say, no, no, sir. I mean, there are bad people. I get that. But in general, when we had a problem, there was someone who was willing to help. And I learned that it was okay to ask. I was so busy
Beautiful.
before trying to like maintain myself and keep myself. And it was, if I
Yeah.
didn't do it all by myself, then
Yes.
did I really accomplish it? And now I've learned, I can go out and ask people, I need help. Yes, I need help with this. Would you be willing to help me? And it doesn't diminish anything that I did.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
yeah.
Um, Small meaning under 500 miles? A trip, small trip?
Yes. So the one that we did in Maine was 340.
Perfect.
The one that we would do up the coast of Florida, I haven't really looked to get the exact mileage. So yeah, I would say, 500-ish. I would prefer not to be on the road more than
Me too.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. The big trip was big, and I'm so glad I did it, because I think if I tried to just do 2-week trips from the beginning, I probably would have given up.
Mm.
Oh, this is hard. I wouldn't have learned enough about myself. Now I know
Mhm.
I can do it. And so it's a matter of, do we want to take this trip, or would we rather take this trip? And now my husband, he's the elite guy. He wants to go across the United States again. And so he's going to find
Of
a group of
course.
guys
Yeah.
that want to go, and he's going to go, and I'm going to support him from home and say, "Yay, aren't you doing a great job?" And, and I'm going to go play bridge on Thursdays. So, that's
So, this was really good. I was 3 months averaging 42 miles a day.
Mhm.
Great to know. That's really great to know. Thank you for that. What was the most challenging? I'm reading questions now. What was the most challenging problem? Bike breakdowns. What was the biggest problem where you had to ask for help, I guess? And what's the most challenging problem of the bike?
So yeah, what's the most? So I guess one that I can talk about is we were in a campground. We were getting ready to go to bed. A gentleman stopped over. They always do. When you have a tandem bicycle and a trailer, you look like your own personal circus. So everyone is asking you, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
so he came over, and quite frankly, I wanted him to leave us alone because I was ready to go to bed, but he was talking. And the next thing he says is, "Which way are you headed?" So we told him, and he said, "You do know that there's 10 miles of road construction where they've torn the road up, and it's down to the dirt bed."
Oh, wow.
And we're like, no, we didn't know that. Well, there's no way that you can ride with traffic through a construction zone for 10 miles.
Yeah.
That was not going to happen. So my husband made a phone call to a local church, and we got someone who lived on the other side of the construction to come pick us up at the construction line, put us into their pickup truck, drive us the 10 miles, drop us
That
off on
was
the other
kind.
side. You
That was
know,
very kind.
and so we had those kinds of things happen. Probably though the very worst thing that happened was we had gotten all the way to Ohio, and my husband had a low sugar incident and passed out.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're on the side of the well, we're at a little business, but he's loopy, and I have a tandem and a loopy husband, and where we're staying is 3 miles away in a hotel, which I've already got booked, but how do I get us there?
Yeah.
And then I found a lady. She was so kind. She drove up in a pickup truck, and I just walked right up to her and I said, "My husband has had a low sugar incident and he cannot ride, and we need to get to the Red Roof Inn up the street. Can you take me?" And she looked at
Nice.
me and she looked at him and she said, "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" And I thought,
Oh.
look at me. Do I look like I'm sitting in a helmet and padded shorts, and I was like, "No, no, I promise, no, I just need to get there." And she agreed to take us. And then, luckily, I have family in Ohio, and we were only about a half an hour from where they lived, and we spent 4 days with them and let him kind of recoup. And
Yeah.
then we took a much slower pace from that point to the end. It was only another 2 weeks. We had run out of reserves. There wasn't any digging deep. In the beginning, you dug deep and you found all kinds of energy that you didn't know you had. Eventually, the reserves
Yes.
run dry, and we tell
Yes.
everyone we're not spring chickens anymore.
That's right.
So I'm 58 at the time. So what would I have been? 57? Yeah, I was 57, almost 58, and my husband was 69, turning 70. So
Yeah.
there comes a point where you have to say, yeah, we need a break. We need a little more time. I
Yep.
wondered if we were going to finish then. I thought that might be the end. And I thought, well, we've done the worst of it, the most of it. And if this is where we end, this is where we end. But he started to feel a lot better and a lot stronger. And then we just followed a few more rules and regulations about making sure we ate properly. We had not for a couple of days.
That's a big deal.
Making sure that we were getting enough fluid, which we probably hadn't for a couple of days, and really listening more to our bodies, which we had begun to
Yes.
not listen to because we were busy. We're trying to get to the end, and so, yeah.
I'm loving this conversation with you so much. And one of the things that is interesting about learning about this, because I'm not the accomplished athlete, I'm accomplished in other ways. And one of the biggest things that happened to me that I really understood the needing to feed yourself correctly. There were so many times when we started bike riding that my partner would say, "You need to eat now so you don't bonk." And I'd be like,
I'm not
"But I'm not
hungry.
hungry. Stupid, stupid, but I'm not hungry."
Yeah.
And we rode one day till I bonked, and
Mhm.
I was there, and she was, like, smart and said, "Here, eat this." And she had actually packed it there waiting for me to bonk so that I could get over my own ego of, I only eat when I'm hungry. And so I remember eating, and we make our own homemade bars, so there's
Mhm.
everything that's good in
Right.
them. We don't
Right.
buy the bars that are we make specialty athletic bars because we eat like athletes. And so we ate the bar, and all of a sudden I could feel the rejuvenation again. And I was like, oh, big lesson. And I know she could have said so many times, "I told you so. I
I
told you
told
so.
you.
I
I
told you.
told you.
I
Yeah.
told you this. I told you." But to my good fortune, she didn't. She said, "Do you feel better? And do you have the extra miles?" Because I think we had 12 miles still to get back where we're getting. And that practice of doing it. But what I enjoy about this is that after you're done, after you got changed, your whole demeanor, you suddenly thought, I'm going to write the great American novel. And you came out. This is the whole point. When you do challenging things that take you out of your comfort zone, not little challenging, big challenging things, it lets you know there's so much more you can do. And suddenly you believe in yourself and you feel like, I can achieve this. And so suddenly you write your first novel. And tell us about it's a historical piece. Tell
Yep.
us about how this came about, what your book is, and do me a favor, Robin, would you throw the Amazon link in for us as well? Now listen, if you're listening to this and you're driving, relax. All the stuff is going to be in the show notes. You're going to be able to come back, click on the links, go get the novel, and do whatever you want. So don't be all crazy inside the car. Drive safe. So tell us about your novel. Tell us
Okay.
about how it came to you, and um where we can get it on Amazon.
Okay. So what's interesting is I started writing in 2017, about the same time that I left that abusive marriage. But I didn't believe in anything that I had written, right? So I was writing, but nobody could see it.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was afraid. Because when you're writing something like a novel, the characters are part of you. They're these people that have been
Yes.
running around in your head. And
Yeah.
no, I don't need medication. I mean, but I have the little voices and they tell me things. And if someone doesn't like that, that's kind of like saying they don't like you. And I couldn't have that happen to me
Interesting.
because I was too fragile. I couldn't do it. So I actually had written this book before I went on the bike trip, but I wasn't letting anyone see it.
Interesting.
Okay, because I was afraid, because if someone rejected it, I might crumple into a pile and never come up again, because I just couldn't do it. But I came back from that bike trip and I said, it is a good story. It is a really good story. And I started putting it out there and got it accepted 6 months later. So
Fantastic.
that's what it did for me in terms of like my career, is it helped me to realize, no, I can say now I am a good author.
Yeah. That's
Whereas
a
I
good
couldn't
feeling.
say that before, because first of all, like, oh, you can't say that about yourself. That's not, that's not humble, and and anything else. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone else or I'm the best author that anyone's ever read, but I wrote a really good book. And
Yeah.
people who are reading it really enjoy it. And so it was so wonderful to come home from that trip and say, this is a good story, and it's a shame to keep it in a closet. I need to put it out here and let other people read it. So the story came about. It's interesting. I have my daughters went to a Girl Scout camp, and every year they would have well, they were counselors at that camp, and every year they would have international counselors come in, and one of them was a Ukrainian girl. She came in 2013, and she came again in 2014, but she couldn't go home in 2014 because she went to go home in August, and Russia had invaded the
Right.
Crimean Peninsula,
That's right.
and that's where her family lived.
Yep.
And there were no flights in or out, and she was kind of stuck here. And she ended up staying in the United States. She got a green card, and things kind of transpired. Well, in 2016, she came to visit my girls. My one daughter was turning 18, and she came to visit. And lo and behold, she tells me this amazing story of something that happened to her. And I was like, this can't be real. Like, I must be misunderstanding. There's a communication. So I repeated what I thought she told me. And lo and behold, that was a true story. And I thought, that needs to be a book or a movie. But that was in 2016, and I was still in a bad relationship. And of course, there's no way I'm going to write it. But that percolated in my mind. Then in 2018, I wrote the story. So I have 82,000 words of fiction so that I could tell 3 pages of truth.
Wow.
So the last 3 pages of the last chapter, not the epilogue, but the last chapter, are true. And the rest of it is historical fiction. So when I say it's fiction, I mean I have real things that really happened, but it's me making stuff up. And the very best thing that I absolutely love, I got a Kirkus review, which is just like really fabulous if
Yes,
you're an author.
that's right.
And right, I mean, it's like one of those things that I love to be able to bring it up, because in this review, it says, oh, glowing, glowing, glowing. And then it says that the end was a little bit improbable. And it made me laugh because the end is the only true part of the book.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, so the story is about 3 generations of Ukrainian women, and we follow them from when they're under Soviet rule through early independence, and then all the way through to when Russia invaded in 2014. The timing of this book is phenomenal because the book got accepted in 2021, and it was put out in January of
Interesting.
2022, 3 weeks before the
Interesting.
invasion. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. I want to let you know, anybody who's listening via live, thank you for listening. Teri's book, we put it up on the screen. The Amazon link is there. If you go to the thread, you can just click on it and boom, and grab a copy of this really fascinating book.
I don't know that we've even said the title yet. It's Sunflowers Beneath the Snow.
Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. Such an intriguing transformation that you have been through. And it's so interesting. We're getting to the top of the hour and everything else, but I just want to say, Teri, one of the things that people do is they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on self-development. They go to conferences and they go to all kinds of things. And then when they get back to their life, the transformation they were seeking, they didn't get, they didn't have. And what I love about your story, about this conversation, is that you challenged every aspect of your life, from being in a point where you were wrecked from a previous marriage, didn't know who you were, had a hard time shopping and deciding and just saying, do I get this or do I get this? Who do I ask first? Not being able to ask for help, not being able to show yourself, not being able to show up in a way for you that you got to the point where you may have lost who you were. You go on this bike trip with this new man that is just this wonderful guy. You challenge yourself so many times, wanting to quit. 2 weeks crossing Montana, 27 miles a day, high winds in your face. You have friends that are supporting you along the way, and they're saying, it's okay if you quit. Just don't quit on a bad day. Quit on a good day. You make it all the way across. You have some challenges where it forces you to ask for help. You find out while asking for help that the general population in the world are good people willing to help you. And they're just afraid of being hurt sometimes. They don't want to be hurt. Everybody wants to help, but they don't want to be hurt along the way of being helpful. You find challenges where you relied on family and rested for 4 days. You end up as a Marine in Washington, D.C. with your spouse, riding all the way across. Like, I literally am fighting tears right now when I say
So am I.
when I say this, when you write and you get to that challenge at the end,
And you see
find that
you see the flag there, and you're coming across, and I was laughing and crying and then
yeah,
laughing and then cry. Like I was a complete mess. Yeah, still thinking about it today, it just sends goosebumps up my arms.
it
It was
does.
the most amazing ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like the lessons you learned along the way, you don't need as much as you think you need. Isn't that a lesson that we need right now in this world? We're killing our world with our consumerism, and you don't need as much as you think you
don't.
need. You want to, enjoy the ride without carrying all this stuff. Then one day at a time. It's today I rode this many miles. Today I rode this many miles. There's no judgment about how many miles that you need. I love the beginning where you said in the beginning you dig deep because you have a lot of depth. You can dig deep and you go that way. But at the end, it was all about self-care and not digging deep. This whole absolute story that you shared with me has so many nuggets. My hair is standing up, and I am literally so absolutely kind of choked up, if you will, about all the brilliance that you just dropped on this show. And the reason I say that is because whether you're riding a bike or going through something uncomfortable or something you don't know about or something that is hellish for you right now, this is the attitude to take about it one day at a time, being present, no judgment, and knowing that if you thought it was going to take you 2 months, but it took you 8 months, it's only that you get there and you showed up at the end.
Mhm.
This has been such an empowering conversation. Here's the last thing I want to ask you before we close out the show.
All right.
To those people who are out there thinking, I want to ride my bike across America, whether you're 20 or 70, what would you say to them?
I would say absolutely you need to go do it. And if it's not a bicycle ride, whatever it is in your life, whatever it is that you think is this challenge that's like bigger than you are, do it. And don't wait. By all means, do not wait, because none of us know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know. Like if we were thinking that we shouldn't go in 2020 because it was COVID, and we did go, we finally decided to go. And I shared with you, my husband was just diagnosed with brain cancer, and
Yeah.
if we hadn't gone, we may never have been able to go. And so my thought is if you have something that you think that you want to do, whether it's something like change your job or go back to school or
Yeah.
ride a bicycle across the United States
Yeah.
or write a book or whatever it is, do it. Do it. And if you don't get the whole way through it, don't call that a failure, because you tried something. You went ahead and put yourself out there. It's the putting yourself
Absolutely.
out there that changed me. It wasn't really the completing it. It was that process. I in my mind, I thought we were going to do it one way, and we ended up doing it differently because we didn't do 60 miles a day, and we did need help, and things didn't go quite as planned, and but we did it. And in the end, when we were done, we could say we had done it. And you didn't have to say, well, I didn't do it the right way, whatever that is,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what is that? What is
Mhm.
that? We did it the right way for us, and we accomplished it. And I think that's what by all means, do that. If you've got something you want to do it.
What a powerful conversation. I pride myself on bringing the best experts in the world to the Coffee Break Show to have discussions like this today. Teri, your book and your life is amazing. It's very inspiring. Go out and get a copy of that novel right now and read it, enjoy it. And I just want to say thank you. Yes, I know. A fabulous, great lesson. So powerful. I agree. And next week, we're going to have a really awesome guest. I just want to say thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show today with us, Teri. And we will see you all next week. See you guys later.